I'm not in the position to call myself academic, never reached that degree myself, even though I've taught public international law for years in my own university back in Poland and Georgia, and then I taught in Kiev as well, but I'm in the company of well-established academics from different corners of the world, so it's very much of a privilege for me to be today with you. I think what I'll focus more today would be a perspective of someone that understands integrally right now what is taking place in Ukraine, and then what your colleagues, academics, not only just the whole of the society of Ukraine is going through right now when it comes to Russian invasion, and then not only just invasion, war, in any incarnation of war is a disaster, but atrocities of the kind that we see that are committed from the Russian side. I'm a lawyer by education, public international lawyer, so believe me, I don't use easily words that I'm going to use now, but it's not only war crimes and crimes against humanity, but what we see already starting from Mariupol, but then now proceeding in so many other localities, unfortunately, in Ukraine, with deliberate attacks on food stocks, on civilians, not allowing them to get out from the sieged places or to get to shelters, and shelters themselves being bombed. It's already reaches the qualification of the crime of genocide as well. So, in other words, we see a tragedy of unparalleled nature for 21st century, at least now, and parallel to the disasters and human sufferings that humankind experienced in 20th century unfolding now in front of our eyes. And unfortunately, at times it feels that we are forced to watch it happening as a life development of some kind, not being able to do most that we could in order to stop it from happening. And while we're not in the position perhaps to stop atrocities as they are unfolding, we as democracies and as electorates in democracies are obviously in the position to pressure our own electoral governments to do more, to have the capacities that are needed for Ukrainians to win this war, to be delivered to them, at least if not the security of the skies that could be ensured for them. But in the meantime, in our own capacities that we could perform in when it comes to help and assistance to communities that are now refugees or are inside of Ukraine but very vulnerable, is something that we are responsible to think about and to see what we could do. And I wanted to, not to repeat what has been already mentioned, to add perhaps more on those who are inside of Ukraine. Now there are a couple of universities in Ukraine, including in Kiev as well, that are trying to do best that they can in terms of surviving, physical survival that be, or survival of their staff in terms of capacities for them to sustain their families and to do the work that they are meant to do. For example, Kiev School of Economics is engaged now in very active work related to thinking of what could be the reconstruction of Ukraine, how one needs to develop methodologies for assessment of economic damage that is inflicted on the country, and already trying to be creative for the time when Ukraine will be able to rebuild, and when Ukraine will be in the position to come back to not only normalcy of life, but rebuild it with more glory even, and strength, being part of not only proud part of Europe, but then star of Europe in so many ways that Ukraine proved to be now, reminding all of us what are actually the values and principles that Europe was founded on, that many forgot and became a bureaucracy, so to say, rather than a value-based union of member states. Now, what I mean by help and assistance that could be now provided to academics and your colleagues, if there are any ways through which in research projects, in actual activities that different institutes, universities, think tanks even are engaged in different parts of Europe, if you would engage your colleagues, and not only in Europe but then elsewhere globally as well, believe me, these are the greatest and brightest minds that you can benefit from their contributions, but at the same time that would showcase that academics from Ukraine, they are not refugees. Many of them are not even technical refugees because they refuse to leave their homeland. We speak about enormous number of refugees that are getting out, but then dominant number of Ukrainians are choosing to stay so far. And those who are out, they don't want to stay out. They would rather go back home. So in that way, as much as employment, sense of purpose and contribution to their own future and future of Europe and global sort of academic development as well that they could contribute now, I guess that's the best practical help and assistance that could be given to them. Not to give just an assistance, but use them, employ them, enable them to contribute to the common academic projects that they are in the best capacities to do so. One of the brightest minds really that you can find. The same goes to young researchers, those who are not yet maybe well-established academicians, but that they are now in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine as well. As you know, outside of Ukraine, it's mostly female part of the Ukrainian society that is out. Male population is either fighting or helping territorial defense units. But as I've said, they still find time and creativity to do work that is aimed at the future of Ukraine rather than war and survival of today that they have to face. So I would say that that's the strongest appeal and a message that I wanted to deliver, that beyond to the assistance that could be at the human level, dedicated to refugees and then the integration, to concentrate how to consider them as functioning academics, how to consider them as functioning researchers, and then to see how best they could be integrated in the academic community in such a way that they are not seen by others and by themselves as well, that they are out of their field of activities, professional activities, but rather in these dire situations, a part of active, professionally contributing academic communities of the world. And if that is established, that's one important brick that could be brought to that purpose of rebuilding Ukraine and then maintaining continuity of Ukraine as a big, proud European nation in this case.
Thank you.